Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 822. 822. June the 27th, 2019, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good to be back. Well, we've got 2 days of news to catch up on, so we need to get with it. Okay, well, let's start right here. As most of you have heard by now, Uncle Bob the Executioner has been subpoenaed to testify in front of a joint committee, the House Intelligence and the House Judiciary Committees, on July the 17th. Those two committees are obviously headed up by the pencil neck geek, the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff for brains. And we also have the penguin, Jerry Nadler, who heads up the other committee. So these two committees are going to have a joint committee, which means they're only going to have one round of questions, and that means that each person will only get to answer or ask or have 5 minutes to ask their question, which is a long time if you plan accordingly, ask the proper questions, the correct questions, and the correct way. Because you can bet that there's some scheming that has been going on. They're going to try to do everything they can to protect Uncle Bob, the drive-by executioner, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work because once the Republicans get their 5 minutes, they can pretty much ask what they want. They understand that Uncle Bob, the drive-by executioner, is going to try to filibuster their answer, try not to answer. Sometimes he may even plead the fifth. I mean, he's a private citizen now. So it doesn't really matter, as I said in a previous video. If you know what you're doing under these circumstances and these conditions, you can still be extremely effective, even if you spend all but 5 seconds asking one question. If it's done correctly, it can be very, very damning. And if you know that the witness is not going to cooperate, he's going to double talk you, filibuster you, plead the fifth, do whatever, then you might as well just go ahead and organize your question in such a way that it is essentially not so much a question as a statement of the glaring violations that this witness, Uncle Bob, has committed or has been involved in with others committing. And so you have to be very strategic about the way that you do this. Of course, with Meadows and Jordan and Ratcliffe and Gomert and these guys, they know exactly how to handle the situation because they understand that there's a game on, and they're not going to be duped. You can bet that they'll handle it pretty damn well. I'm sure that they'll all get together and coordinate their plan on how to handle Uncle Bob the Executioner, knowing in advance the game that he is going to play with them and the game that's going to be running on them by the penguin and the pencil neck geek. So you may ask, a lot of people may be saying, you know, man, is Nadler, is he stupid? Well, as a matter of fact, yes, he is. Yes, he absolutely is. I mean, you know, people are saying, well, you know, Nadler can't, there must be something. They must have to be cooking up something because Nadler can't be this stupid to bring Uncle Bob in there. It's going to blow up in their face. No, really. Nadler, the penguin, he is that stupid. He really is. I mean, he brought in Cohen, did he not? And how'd that go? Then he brings in John Dean. How did that go? Yes, he is that stupid. And Uncle Bob's just another example. It's the same thing. But he's desperate. What else has he got? Nothing. Uncle Bob, the drive-by executioner, cannot really help Nadler and Schiff. He can't really help them because he's already written his report. What's he going to do? Sit there and say something different? He can't do that. Is he going to expand on the obstruction? Well, let him go ahead. Let him go ahead. Because he's going to be asked by at least one of those Republicans how it is that a prosecutor is trying to make it sound like his job is to prove someone's innocence. It is not. And he's going to get grilled and raked over the coals hard on that. And if he tries to press that point, if he tries to expand on that, to try to help out the penguin or the pencil neck geek, and he goes down that road, then that's going to open the door for Republicans to have that conversation with him about the role of a prosecutor, which is to find the crime, and if you can't find it, you shut the hell up and you exonerate. You don't prosecute. You just don't prosecute. You don't say, well, we couldn't find the crime. We couldn't find enough evidence that we could win a case in court. But we really couldn't prove that he didn't do something either. I mean, this is insanity. And he will look like a damn fool if he tries it. And he knows it. That's why it's a very, very dangerous road for him to go down on this obstruction part of it. And as far as the first part of the Uncle Bob the Executioner report about the collusion, he said in matter-of-fact terms, there was no collusion. None. Zero. Zip. That's not even up for debate. So what can really come out of the hearings? I mean, Uncle Bob is not, plus Uncle Bob is also thinking, he knows what kind of a rigged deal he ran, and he knows he could very well be the target of John Durham for being part of the coup. He also knows he's under oath, and that Barr and Durham are going to be watching his press conference very carefully, listening very carefully to every word he says. And Uncle Bob is not at the top of his game. I watched that 9-minute press conference. He looked to me to be disheveled. He didn't appear to even know much about the investigation he was commenting on because he had to read word for word from some sort of a letter or a teleprompter everything he was saying. He couldn't just sit there and look out at the audience and say, okay, well, here's what happened. Basically this, and this. He might have a few notes in front of him, but he should have just been able to direct his statement to everyone there. He didn't take any questions because he's not prepared to answer any, because I don't think Uncle Bob really had a hell of a lot to do with this. I think that Weissman, the wise ass, was running things with Jenny Rhee. They had all the other guys there. They had the FBI investigators, these 40 corrupt FBI officials, and they were pretty much running the con. And Uncle Bob's job was just to keep it going. They were just using Uncle Bob to try to use him to give this thing credibility. And I don't think Uncle Bob is really prepared to answer a lot of the questions that he's going to be hit with. And boy, there's some juicy questions. I would love 5 minutes with Uncle Bob. Oh my goodness gracious. Now, I'm sure that Meadows and Jordan and those guys are just, man, they got to be just salivating at the thought, at the opportunity that's coming their way on July the 17th. It's going to be quite entertaining, I can assure you of that. And the Democrats are going to be very, very sorry, because yes, Nadler is dumb enough, he absolutely is stupid enough to go ahead with this, and we now know he is because he's issued the subpoena, and Uncle Bob has agreed that he will answer the subpoena. And Adam the Bug-Eyed Fool Schiff, yeah, he's crazy enough to go through with it as well. So they can try to rig it any way they want, but ultimately, I can assure you that this is going to blow up in their face badly. And Uncle Bob is going to be walking on eggshells. He's going to be asked a lot of questions that are going to be very, very difficult for him to answer truthfully. Truthfully. I know he's going to be asked at least once when he learned that the dossier was a bunch of BS. And that's going to be a tough question for him to answer, because almost his entire investigation was based on it, right along with the FISA warrants and all the rest of these things. And we know that Weissman, the wise ass, knew all about the dossier. He knew about it in the summer of 2016. So if that's the case, then Uncle Bob would have known before day one. As soon as he met Weissman, he would have known that the whole thing was a fraud. And what about Operation Crossfire Hurricane? Based on the conversation of Papagalopoulos with Mifsud, saying that Mifsud is a Russian agent, when in fact we know he's not. We know it's just the opposite. And that's certainly, I think it's already been proven, but it'll ultimately be absolutely proven by Mr. Durham. Uncle Bob knows this. So what's he going to do? Sit there and lie? And say, well, we believe Mifsud's a Russian agent. Oh yeah, we believe that. Yeah. He better be very, very careful with how he answers these questions. Yep. Alrighty, let's get to the next thing here. Well, it looks like some waitress spat on Eric Trump, Trump's son. Of course, you know, he has Secret Service protection, so if you spit on the president's kid, you're probably going to have a Secret Service agent handcuff you and take you away, which is exactly what happened. Of course, it looks like Eric Trump is not going to press charges. That's interesting. I would have, but it looks like he's not going to press charges. And as far as we know, the waitress has not yet been fired. Holy smoke! That's hard to believe that you could spit on your customer and not get fired. That's something else. I don't think I would go to that restaurant if it were me. They like to spit on people, no telling what else they do. I would not be going back to that restaurant, to be honest with you. I hope the name of that waitress comes out, and I hope the name of the restaurant is pretty well circulated so that a lot of people can just not go there. That would be the best thing to do. Just not go there. Okay, here's another big story that's broken in the last 2 days by one of the president's lawyers, Jay Sekulow. So Jay Sekulow is on Hannity, and he's also talked about it on his own radio show, where he said that he's finally gotten some documents that have been under subpoena by his organization for almost 2 years. He finally has received some of those documents, and they show that Clapper, the unwitting idiot, James Clapper, the ODNI, rushed to change raw intelligence sharing rules shortly before Trump's inauguration. Yeah, we know all about that. We know all about it because of Evelyn Farkas. That's right, Evelyn Farkas. We remember that little interview she did. We only saw her once. Boom. As soon as that interview was over, we never saw her again. Evelyn Farkas. Now, Evelyn Farkas told us all about how in the last days of the Obama administration they were doing everything they could to get all the information that they had out there, to spread it throughout the entire government. So now that's what this is all about. So let's get back to it. So Farkas told us that a year ago. Now these documents show that the unwitting idiot James Clapper and Loretta Lynch were desperate to change the rules on intelligence sharing before January the 20th, Trump's inauguration day, before Trump could be sworn into office. So they expanded this intelligence sharing from 3 agencies to 17, and this included the sharing of raw intelligence, not even intelligence that had been looked at and thought, okay, this is something we should share. No, this is just raw, flat out raw intelligence, including signal communications. Oh man, now we know how the Michael Flynn phone call was leaked and why they're having such a tough time finding out who did it, because it was literally spread throughout 17 agencies. You're talking probably thousands of people. So on December the 15th of 2016, December 2015, 2016, about 3 weeks after Trump had won the election, Clapper, the unwitting idiot, executed a document entitled, quote, Procedures for the Availability or Dissemination of Raw Signals Intelligence Information. And this was an order that falls within the NSA under Section 2.3, and it's Executive Order 12333. So then, on January the 3rd of 2017, Loretta Lynch signed the order. We had Clapper's underling, Robert Litt, who sent a memo to a colleague, an email, where he said, we really need to get this done, and we really want to get this done, and so does the boss. Now, he could be talking about his boss, Clapper, the unwitting idiot, but this is about an executive order. So when he says the boss, could mean Clapper, but this is about something that he wants to get done for someone to sign the executive order, and that's typically the president. We also have an NSA official in one email and that they have received that says, quote, could have a signature from the AG as early as this week, certainly prior to the 20th of January. So clearly, they're in a mad dash to make this happen just less than 3 weeks before Trump is to become president. And they're basically saying here, basically we have to have this done by the 20th. By the time Trump comes to office, we have to have this done. So this executive order guaranteed the deep state's ability to leak classified information for the purpose of undermining President Trump and making it nearly impossible to catch the leakers. What does all this mean? Well, I think it means much more ammunition for Barr and Durham, because this information will certainly find its way to Barr and Durham, and this will just add to the mountain of evidence of what they were trying to do here. And this is a couple things. It's obviously to help them do the things they need to do to cover up the previous crimes they had committed, but it's to make it nearly impossible to catch the people who might have been leaking this stuff, including the guy who leaked the Flynn-Kislyak phone call, because now you have thousands and thousands and thousands of government employees who would have received this information instead of maybe several dozen. All part of the plan. And if you think any of this was going on without Obama knowing about it, then you're quite naive. Quite naive. Well, Sekulow's group as well as John Solomon have both unearthed more damning emails. This time, it's emails from the former UK ambassador, the demonic skank Samantha Power. The demonic skank Samantha Power. These documents show unprecedented unmasking and political bias in the final days of the Obama administration. Solomon says it's just as bad as the Strzok page texts, and there are other officials involved, not just Power. These documents also show Power and other officials colluding with the media, insulting Trump and actively trying to undermine Trump's incoming administration. The comments include those such as calling Trump morally repugnant and a bully, calling Steve Bannon, an avowed racist, and suggesting that the worst is coming. We have Ben Rhodes also caught up in this thing, and I suspect when Power told Congress that in those close to 300 unmaskings that were unmasked under her name, she said not all of them were actually her doing the unmasking, that other people, I guess, used her name. I think that we're talking about Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes is probably the one who did a lot of those unmaskings using Samantha Power's name. Is that legal or violation of some procedure? I don't know, but I assume we're going to find that out. It doesn't sound right. Didn't Mike Rogers of the NSA, when he was being questioned, say that unmasking requires a specific request and that they only give the unmasking information to the person who made the request and that it is all documented? I believe he did. Sekulow says that the new emails show that the fix was in against Trump. And of course, Mark Meadows wants to bring Power in for questioning. Well, yeah, go ahead. But I would suspect that at this point, she is already on the radar screen of Barr and Durham. And now she certainly is on the radar screen along with all the other people in these emails. This was supposed to be released sometime today. That's what Solomon and Hannity were kind of alluding to on Monday. I think it was Monday night or Tuesday night. They were saying next day that we might see these are pretty well. I understand they're pretty heavily redacted, but that there was enough there that certainly you can get the gist of what's going on. And Solomon says it's a lot like the Page Strzok texts with a lot of that type of thing going on. But so I was expecting. I've been looking for it all day, and checking, like I must have checked, 50 times today, and I just never saw where the story ever popped up. So there must be some difficulty in getting this out. But I would expect within the next 24 to maybe 72 hours, 1 to 3 days, this will certainly get out, and we'll actually get to see some of the specific things in these emails. And of course, there'll be a lot of redactions. Not for Barr and Durham, though. They won't be looking at redacted documents. No. They'll be looking at the actual texts. Just more ammunition to be used against the deep state. These people have a lot of problems, and power better lawyer up, right along with a lot of her friends. A lot of her friends better lawyer up, man. So this is just another agency of the government that was involved. So we have the State Department, the DOD, the Treasury Department, the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, the DNIA, the ODNI. We have now, to add to that list, the UN ambassador. That's a division of the State Department, of course, I do believe. But typically, the UN ambassador typically answers to the National Security Advisor, which is, of course, one of the president's most critical appointments, the National Security Advisor. That would have been Susan Rice. So I guess Susan Rice would have been kind of the boss, if you want to call it that, of Samantha Power, and then the only person above her would have been Obama. So that's Samantha Power's chain of command, pretty much, would be Rice and Obama. That's not good if you're Rice and Obama. Alrighty, here's another one. Well, the problems with CrowdStrike are getting bigger and more obvious. And as we know, Barr and Durham are looking for the origins of the Russia collusion narrative. Well, it pretty much started with, it actually started a little before that with the DNC, things going on in Ukraine, this Alexandria Chalupa talking to the DNC, but it really got blown up and went full crazy mode and became more of a Trump-Russia narrative after the alleged hack of the DNC. And as we know, Perkins Coie, the rotten Reverend Clinton's lawyer, brought in CrowdStrike to do the examination. And we know a lot about CrowdStrike, but let's learn a little more. So there's an organization that you may not be familiar with. It is called DFRL, Digital Forensic Research Lab. Digital Forensic Research Lab, DFRL. They are the organization that is behind CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is more or less an arm of the DFRL. The DFRL is the research lab for the Atlantic Council. Oh yes. Oh yes, and we've talked a lot about the Atlantic Council. These are the people who actually investigated the DNC servers and even determined that they were hacked by the Russians. The Atlantic Council and Atlanticists, as they're described in European terms, are Putin-hating, mostly pro-Ukraine types, and the organization itself is a Putin-hating, pro-Ukraine organization. The Atlantic Council. Keep that name in mind. You're going to be hearing much more about them in the future. The Atlantic Council. Victor Pinchik is one of the top-tier advisors on the Atlantic Council Advisory Board. Mr. Pinchik was doing his best to promote Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. Mr. Pinchik is also a Ukrainian billionaire and a longtime contributor, major contributor, to the Clinton Foundation. James Clapper, the unwitting idiot, also serves on the advisory board of the Atlantic Council. And of course, we talk about this guy all the time, Dmitry Alperovich. He is the owner of CrowdStrike, and he is also a senior fellow for cybersecurity for the Atlantic Council. George Soros is someone who donates a lot of money to the Atlantic Council, and he's part of their cabal as well. And we know, of course, that Mr. Alperovich is a Russian who despises Putin. So here we have another rotten Reverend Clinton connection. As I say all the time, all roads lead to the rotten Reverend Clinton. Everybody's connected to the rotten Reverend Clinton. So here we have the DFRL plus CrowdStrike plus Clapper plus Alperovich plus the rotten Reverend Clinton. Add all that together, and what do you get? You get lies, you get fraud, and you get corruption. And that is the people who established the narrative that the Russians hacked the DNC servers. The FBI, no law enforcement agency, ever looked at those servers. They took the word of the Atlantic Council and CrowdStrike. Friends of Hillary, Clapper, Alperovich, Soros, the Atlanticist, the anti-Trump pro-Ukrainian folks. That's the orbit CrowdStrike floats around in. That's who they're connected to. They're an arm of the Atlantic Council. That's who we relied on for the Trump-Russia narrative, or the roots of it. Certainly the people who we relied on to tell us that the Russians hacked the servers. That's who the FBI relied on and counted on. That's who Uncle Bob the Executioner relied on and counted on. And this entire thing, there's all the stuff that went on, including the Mueller investigation, had to use this narrative. CrowdStrike and the Atlantic Council, George Soros, Clapper, the rotten Reverend, Alperovich. Those are the people who gave us the Russians hacked the DNC server narrative. Now, Barr and Durham might want to look into this. I'd recommend it. I would if it was me. I know that Roger Stone's attorneys are awfully interested in exploring this particular avenue. Well, it looks like Devin Nunes has still not heard back from the FBI from the letter he sent them requesting documents. It appears that Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray, the current director of the Federal Bureau of Insubordination, has not responded to Devin Nunes' request for documents and to explain why they did not release certain documents that are now available that should have been made available a long time ago. No word yet from No Shit Sherlock Ray. He's probably hiding under his desk or in the closet or something. My God, he needs to be fired. Here we go. This is, again, another one of these stories that's not totally all new. There's some new information here, but some of this we learned about a long time ago. So let's just go through this again, because there's a little bit of new information here. And this is a story that was the top headline story for Big League Politics on Wednesday morning. The article says that Comey, that would be the dishonorable James Comey, the former director of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, Comey hid Clinton's emails in a binder in his office safe and had Hillary's backup email drive. Comey had a white binder marked Clinton emails. The State Department and the FBI possessed a Dado Inc. backup email device for the rotten Reverend Clinton's private email server, which of course the judge has ordered to be released. But they're taking their time. Platte River is the company that the Right Reverend Clinton subcontracted her services out to for her private server for security and for encrypting and for backup. So we find out that Platte River used this company, Datto Inc., D-A-T-T-O, Datto Inc., for their backup services. And Platte River was supposed to encrypt Clinton's emails and secure them, but it appears it was not done effectively. So the emails can be read. Datto, by order of subpoena, did give the FBI 6 disks. And it's very likely that the 33,000 deleted emails are on some of those disks. And of course, the judge has ruled that they were supposed to be released like a year ago. But the State Department apparently they're saying the FBI, Comey never looked at them. I don't believe that. But they're saying he didn't. That he turned them over to the State Department after he was fired. Or maybe just before he was fired. Now, the original story on this was about a year ago. And I think I saw it on Conservative Treehouse, where they actually got this document that showed after Comey had been fired, they went in to inventory the contents of his office and all this stuff, and they found this sort of ledger, and on it it said top secret Hillary emails. And at that point it was suspected, or maybe even known, that he had basically had Hillary's emails on disk or some sort of drive or something. So now we just have a little bit more specific about it. It's on disks. There are 6 of them. They were given to Comey by this company that did the backup, Datto Inc. They were the company that did the backup. We're supposed to do the backup for Platte River. They turned this over to Comey. It's being alleged by Big League Politics that maybe one of the reasons Comey said on it and didn't release it, obviously because of how damaging it would likely be to the Right Reverend Clinton, but also because he may have been holding on to it to use it as leverage against the Right Reverend Clinton after she won the election. He was going to be able to say, well, I'd sure like to be and remain the FBI director. And if she thought about making a change, he could just simply show her the 6 disks and say, hey, that company was supposed to back up your stuff. When you told Platte River to delete all your emails, those 33,000 emails, well, before they deleted them, they had them backed up with this company, Datto Inc. Well, Datto Inc. provided me with 6 disks, which contain all of your emails. So I got those 33,000. Now, I don't know what's on them, Reverend, because I haven't looked at them. But I want to remain the FBI director. But if you fire me, I'll have nothing else to do but go home and review those 6 disks. Or I can be FBI director for life and I can hold on to them. Is Comey that nuts? Yes. Is he that evil? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ruthless. Look at his career, if you doubt me. Look at who this guy's worked for, who he's represented. This guy is deep state ugly, my friends. Deep state ugly. And has no love for the Reverend. He's totally self-serving like all the other swamp monsters. So there you go. Some very important stories today, but we are now caught up. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a very good evening. Gonna go watch those Democratic debates. Hope they don't put me to sleep. See ya. Bye.